Mayor Bloomberg, remedies. When this AIG business came along here and it really blew up this week, the response has been taxes. The House has passed a measure to go back and sort of claw back these bonuses, get 90% in taxes. Republicans and Democrats have raised their voice to say the tax code should not be used punitively like this. There's talk of trying to publicly out the people who receive these bonuses. Is this the right response?
Well, number one, the first thing to do is to put the right people in charge, and I think Tim Geithner is exactly the guy that I would want there. He's smart. He is a workaholic. He's been there. He's been part of the financial system for a long time. He understands how things work, how markets work, how people react. When it comes down to worrying about the bonuses, I understand why people are really upset. But the real thing that we've got to focus on is getting the banks liquid, getting them to start making loans again. What I'm worried about are we have 6,500 people who work for AIG that live in New York City. Most of them make less than $100,000 a year. They don't get bonuses. They want to keep their jobs. They want to be able to pay their mortgages. So what we've got to do is find some ways to balance all of this, make those who are culpable lose their investments, not get their bonuses, but really focus on how we're going to get companies back going, growing again.
David Brooks writes about this in the New York Times on Friday when he talks about the short-sightedness of this outrage over AIG. He writes this: the Washington political class has spent the past week going into made-for-TV hysterics over $165 million in AIG bonuses. We're in the middle of a multi-trillion-dollar crisis, and our political masters have decided to risk destroying the entire bank rescue plan because of bonuses that account for 0.001% of the annual GDP. Governor Schwarzenegger, California's harder hit than almost any part of the country. Do you think the populism, the populist anger in the country is good or bad for the country at this point?
Well, you know, I understand with your job that you have to kind of point a lot of times at the negative things. I see things also in a positive way. We in California, we had a $42 billion budget deficit, and the legislators, Democrats and Republicans, came together after long negotiations, and we came to an agreement, a budget agreement, and reformed also the budget system, which will go on a ballot on May 19th. There's 6 measures on the ballot, and it has a good chance of passing. So there will be historic reforms. So I think that one can take the crisis and turn it into an opportunity, into really great things, and that will bring the confidence back when the people see Democrats and Republicans coming together. In California, they've come together, and I think the people really appreciate that. So I think that's what we have to do on a national level. Like I said, I have great hopes for this country, and I think that Washington is going to learn from the mistakes that were made in the past, and I think in the end we're going to come out stronger and better.
You talk about being more positive. President Obama faces great leadership challenges with regard to this economic crisis, and he spoke in the context of taxpayers' frustration, bailout fatigue, and just anger during his address to Congress February 24th. This is what he said.
I also know that in a time of crisis, we cannot afford to govern out of anger or yield to the politics of the moment.
And yet the politics of the moment this week, all about outrage over AIG. This is what he said Wednesday.
I don't want to quell anger. I think people are right to be angry. I'm angry. What I want us to do, though, is channel our anger in a constructive way.
Is he keeping his promise of not governing in anger?
He said the channel our anger in a constructive way. Look, I think it's a bigger issue than the momentary anger. And God knows we all have to understand what people are feeling. We've got to change the corporate culture in this country. I don't think we can legislate it, but we've got to change it. People should be rewarded when they do good things for their company. What really my constituents say to me, how dare these SOBs who tank their own company, who caused this problem in America, get huge bonuses? They're lucky that they still have a job. They shouldn't get bonuses because they failed to perform. And that's exactly right. That's what happens to the working guy. Think of how many Americans, David, have lost their jobs, even though they've done a brilliant job because their company failed, because the economy failed. In Pennsylvania, up until February, we'd lost 60,000 jobs. In February, we lost 43,000 jobs. What do we say to those people? That these individuals got bonuses, and It's not AIG's money. If it was AIG's money, they can do anything they want. It was our money.
But Mayor Bloomberg, you've made the point repeatedly in the course of our conversation. We know about a startling figure, $2 trillion at least is how much the banks have lost on their balance sheets from these impaired assets. The taxpayers have to do something about that. The president has said there's $750 billion in the budget for additional bailout money. He's got a steep hill to climb. Because of that, AIG makes it worse. A lot of critics say, look, if you were opposed to the bonuses several months ago when they came to light, you could have fought to renegotiate those contracts to deny the bonuses. If you think they weren't that big of a deal or you wanted to avoid a lawsuit, then maybe the responsibility now is not to feed the anger, but to try to put it in perspective and say, look, we have to make priorities. You can't get so mad about this. We got to think about the long term. What should he be doing?
I think he's got to look. Arnold said that, and he's right, you go around the world and everybody's got the same kind of problems we do. I would rather have America's hand to play than any other hand. And being optimistic doesn't even cost you a dime. There's no reason not to think that we won't get through this and come out of it the other side. What we have to do is to make sure those who are getting hurt in the meantime don't fall through whatever kind of safety nets we can build. But having said that, we still have to go and get on with our lives. We have to buy new cars. We have to start new businesses. We have to go and provide good educations for our kids and make those kinds of commitments.
I understand, but I want to interrupt you because I'm asking a very direct question. Look, the three of you around this table represent 56 million people. You're leaders, you're communicators. This is a leadership question for the President of the United States. There is rampant anger in the country. We've talked about the fact a lot of people have legitimate claims. Is his responsibility now to try to tamp down that anger, or has he allowed himself to get caught up in it for political reasons?
Well, keep in mind, he's only been in office, as I said before, 2 months. And so he's got to work his way through this kind of problem. I don't think any president's come into office with as many problems on his plate day one as this one has. What he's got to do is explain to the public why we have to get a functioning banking system. He's got to explain to the public why we want to reward people who take risks and are successful and build businesses and give us a future. That is his job. He is the leader of the free world, and people listen to every word he says. And he's got to focus on that. And he's getting his team together. He's getting his voice. It just takes a little time. I think he's going to be a great president.
And you support Secretary Geithner?
Absolutely.
And Governor Schwarzenegger, you said you supported Secretary Geithner. You still have confidence in him?
Yes, and I think that what AIG did is horrible, and it's inexcusable and unacceptable. But you got to also, at the same time, talk about the positive. I mean, President Obama was out in California. I was with him there. But he announced $80 billion of great part of the economic stimulus package. $35 billion on tax benefits. $50 billion on other stimulus benefits. Infrastructure itself, $7 billion to help us build roads and schools and all kinds of buildings. So, almost $20 billion for health care and for education and on and on. That, to me, is positive. That is great for the state of California. And we wanted to let him know that we appreciate that we had this big rally there for him. So, to me, that has to be put in at the same time. We can't just always talk about the problems that there are or the mistakes that were made. I just want to make sure that not to ignore this problem that you're talking about, but also to mention the good things that are happening in this country.
Right.